with big dreams of being superstars. Don't let nobody tell you that you can't, but you gotta work super hard. To the older man who feels his life is over cause he wasted it standing on corners. One thing I learned about the streets, it's never too late for a come up. I was told before that I couldn't do it. I remember being told by my own peeps not to rap, and singing in my hood wasn't popular, but I got respect for it cause I was a beast. Facts. If you got a dream, you gotta stay committed, you can get it, but you gotta be a beast, you can't slack for a minute. Remember this, if you remember nothing else, you gotta be relentless.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, misery bots of all ages, back again with another video. This time, we're talking about the end of MK1. The definitive edition was just announced, and now we're going to talk about what really happened with MK1. But before I do, definitely check out the Adrian Rockstar SoundCloud in the descriptions below if you enjoyed that intro music. Let's get into the video. Now, I'm hearing a lot of people say Mortal Kombat 1 is bad, and Mortal Kombat 1 is trash, it's garbage, all of the guest characters killed it, and stuff like that. I'm here to say that that's not true. That is not the reason why MK1 failed by Mortal Kombat standards. And I got to specify that because as a fighting game, Mortal Kombat 1 did not fail. It actually sold very well. It's still relatively popular compared to other fighting games. And in fact, if you compare it to some of the other fighting games that launched around the same time Mortal Kombat 1 came out, it's done and is doing very well. What's up, Nuketown? If you compare it in terms of sales to like Tekken 8 or even Street Fighter 6, it's up there. It's going blow for blow with those particular titles. Now, in terms of like tournament scenes and stuff like that, it may not be as good, as well as maybe even player retention, but that ultimately comes down to the fact that Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 are games that were built for that particular community, whereas Mortal Kombat 1 isn't really a Mortal Kombat game built for the Mortal Kombat community, which is crazy to say, but ultimately the Mortal Kombat community didn't want this. This isn't what the Mortal Kombat community actually wanted, nor is it something that they ever really wanted. And I'm boggled or just confused as to what kind of market research that NetherRealm did to make them believe that this is what their community wanted. And I think I have a theory on that. I do think I have a theory on that, and I will let you guys know, in on the theory I have in regards to it. But in terms of Mortal Kombat 1 and how it is as a product and as a game and as a fighting game, it's not a bad fighting game. It's I would dare to say that it's actually a pretty good fighting game. I would go as far as to say that is actually a really good fighting game. Where it fails and flounders at is just not what the community wanted. It's just not what the community wanted. When you build a community based on 1v1 fighting, and then you make a game where its core mechanics is that of an assist or tag based fighting game, you alienate your own community. And that's basically and ultimately what happened with Mortal Kombat 1. Granted, there are other issues too. That's not the sole reason. Like the fact that it launched content light, especially relative to like its predecessors in Mortal Kombat 10 and Mortal Kombat 11, it was relatively content light. But when you compare it to a lot of other fighting games, it was on par in terms of content with a lot of other fighting games. The fact that it had a bunch of guest characters. Now, I'm not a fan of the majority of the guest characters they had in this particular game, but it still doesn't change the fact that guest characters appeal to the casuals and they help sell the game. Like casuals will buy a game for its guest characters. That was proven in MKX. That was also proven in MK11. Now, and I think it actually helped with MK1. Honestly speaking, I think people like Homelander and even Peacemaker or Keeper or whatever his name is, John Cena's character, and even Homelander, I think were big sellers for him. The T1000, I think, is also a big seller for NetherRealm. But ultimately, the game's sales and stuff like that is not living up to its predecessor, and that's because its core gameplay differentiates itself so much from its predecessors. Again, like I said before, the Mortal Kombat community is built on 1v1 fighting. That's what we had in every Mortal Kombat game. Now, granted, other Mortal Kombat games may have had game modes that allowed for tag team or some sort of assist-based fighting, but those wasn't the core mechanic of the gameplay, nor were those game modes played or entertained as much as the main core game mode. For example, like Mortal Kombat 9 did have tag team fighting, but NetherRealm themselves said that like yo that didn't there wasn't enough people playing it to justify putting tag team fighting in another game. And then somewhere along the lines they decided, yeah, tag team fighting wasn't didn't bring in enough audience or didn't have enough player base in Mortal Kombat 9. So why don't we go ahead and make that a relatively core mechanic? Granted, it's assist based, but a core mechanic for Mortal Kombat 1. Even in Mortal Kombat 11, because like Mortal Kombat 11 has like assist in it in some of the single player game modes, but you can't sit here and tell me that the research that NetherRealm did made them believe that okay, there's enough people that like this assist based thing to where we can make it a core mechanic in our next game. That's where they floundered at. That's where they really dropped the ball at. And I think the reason they did that was because I really think that Mortal Kombat 1 was not supposed to be a Mortal Kombat game. I truly believe that it was supposed to be Injustice 3. I mean, a lot, even when you look at a lot of the characters seem like they were supposed to be like some sort of DC characters. I mean, you look at somebody like General Shao, who has an axe as opposed to his iconic hammer. And it was like, what was the purpose of that? He doesn't even have his shoulder charge in this. Like they took away core moves and weapons away from that particular character, and I just don't understand the reason for that outside of it of him not supposedly being General Shao, but instead being a different character. Like I was under the assumption that he was supposed to actually be Steppenwolf. He was supposed to be Steppenwolf from the DC universe, who wields an axe, whose appearance is relatively similar to the General Shao that we have in this game, and his moveset is relatively similar to the General Shao that we have in this game. And he's not the only one. There are other characters that are very reminiscent of what could be DC characters. But that's what I believe happened. I believe that somewhere along the line they were going for Injustice 3. I want to say maybe WB stepped in and was like, nah, don't make another Injustice games. Those games are not selling as well as your Mortal Kombat games, which even though Injustice games do sell relatively well for the fighting game genre, they're not touching the sales of like a Mortal Kombat game, like a Mortal Kombat X or 11. So I think WB seen that and was like, yo, yeah, I know y'all already started working Injustice. We need y'all to switch over to Mortal Kombat. So I believe what happened was NetherRealm took the assets and everything they've created thus far and converted it to Mortal Kombat, but then I think they ultimately ran out of time. That's why Mortal Kombat 1, although having like a probably arguably larger development window than any other NetherRealm game before it, they also were launched content light compared to some of the other previous Mortal Kombat games like MK9 and MKX and MK11. And thus, because they had to change from what I believe would have been an Injustice 3 and diverted from the core gameplay mechanics of a NetherRealm of a Mortal Kombat game, it being a 1v1, Mortal Kombat 1 ultimately became a failure because it didn't appeal to its core fans. In fact, it alienated a lot of its core fans. Not to say, again, not to say that Mortal Kombat 1 is a bad game. It's not a bad game. It's actually a fun game. It's fun. It's just not what the Mortal Kombat community wanted. And that's where it ultimately failed at. It failed to appeal to the community. Now, it did do a decent job of bringing in a wave of new people into the community, but obviously that wave of new people into the community was nowhere near large enough to justify buying and even continuing to support this game. That's why this game, out of the most previous NetherRealm games, particularly the previous NetherRealm Mortal Kombat games, I think it's probably going to sell the least. Like I don't know what Mortal Kombat 9 sold, and I could probably try to look that up, but I think Mortal Kombat 9 may have sold as much, if not slightly more, than Mortal Kombat 1. As of right now, I believe Mortal Kombat 1 has sold about what 5 million units. How much did Mortal Kombat 1 sell, or Mortal Kombat 9 sell? That is the question. That is the question. Let's see if we can try to figure that out. But ultimately, I think that's what it is. The fact that they made it an assist-based fighting game as opposed to a 1v1 fighting game, I think was its ultimate downfall for Mortal Kombat 1. If they had kept it as a Mortal Kombat 1v1 fighting game, I think it would have sold more. Sales for MK9. That's MK9. So MK9, also known as Mortal Kombat, sold 3 million copies by 2011. So as of right now, it sold that we are aware of. It sold about 3 million. I'm of the assumption that its number is probably a little higher than that, but as of right now, we know it sold about 3 million. And as of right now, Mortal Kombat 1 has sold about 5 million. So as of right now, Mortal Kombat 1 has sold about 2 million copies more than Mortal Kombat 9. But I'm of the belief that Mortal Kombat 9, even though the 3 million is the last reported number, I believe that it's probably hovering closer to that 5 million mark than we are actually aware of. So as of right now, Mortal Kombat 1 and I think Mortal Kombat 9 has sold relative in terms of sales. But when you consider the fact that Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11 have both sold well over 10 million. Mortal Kombat X, I think, sold 11 to 12 million. Mortal Kombat 11 sold more than 15 million. Like, that's a massive drop off. A massive drop off. And again, that just lends credence to the fact that this is just, it's not that the fact the game is bad is a bad game, because it's not. It's the fact that this is just a game that the community didn't want. They never asked for a tag or an assist based fighting game, nor is there any sort of evidence that this is what the community ever wanted. And this tends to happen all of the time when you look at other games, even in different genres, where the developers massively divert from the core gameplay mechanics of the game, and the game ends up floundering because of that. If you look at Street Fighter 4, if I'm not mistaken, which was sold very well, and then you look at Street Fighter slash Tekken, which was basically Street Fighter 4, but it was more like a tag-based game. I don't think that game sold very well, or was received very well by its community compared to Street Fighter 4. And there was a reason for that, because that's not what the community wanted. Grant, they wanted a Street Fighter versus Tekken, but both of those communities are communities that game is based off of 1v1 fighting game. So when you combine the two and then turned it into a tag base, it kind of messed it up for those two communities, and that's kind of what happened here. So with that being said, I know there's a lot of people that's throwing blame everywhere. Oh, there's too many guest characters. Oh, the game is trash. Oh, this, that, and another. The story mode was garbage and stuff like that. Don't believe any of that, man. The story mode was good for the most part up until you get to like the Melina chapter. Then it does kind of flounder a little bit, but ultimately I think it's still a decent story mode, worth trying out. Gameplay is fun. It's decent. It's competent. The gameplay isn't bad or trash by any means. And any of the other stuff, that the guest characters are fine and actually fun, and more than likely probably brought in a lot of new people and casuals and stuff like that. Hence the reason it reaching the 5 million mark was probably because of all of the guest characters. Truth be told, ultimately it's just not what the community wanted. That's where that's the core, and NetherRealm noticed that. They noticed, okay, this isn't what our community wanted. Hence the reason they cut support sooner than the previous other Mortal Kombat games, if I'm not mistaken, or on par with the other Mortal Kombat games, and are quickly moving on to the next game. They even let us know, like, yo, we're done. We're just moving on to the next one, and that's because they can see that this game is going to be stagnant. This is not going to this game's, no matter what support they give it, because of the core gameplay, it's not going to reach the heights of MKX or MK11. It's just not going. That's just not going to happen because of the core gameplay. It's not appealing enough to its core fan base. So, with that being said, let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think is the issue and why Mortal Kombat 1 for Mortal Kombat games is a failure? Because again, 5 million, that's up there with some of the better selling fighting games, honestly speaking. But in terms of Mortal Kombat game, it's nowhere there. So let me know in the comments below why you think it failed as a Mortal Kombat game. Do you believe it succeeded as just a fighting game? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and check out the Adrian Rockstar SoundCloud in the descriptions below. Have a good one.
To them young boys in the hood with big dreams of being superstars. Don't let nobody tell you that you can't, but you gotta work super hard. To the older man who feels his life is over cause he wasted it standing on corners. One thing I learned about the streets, it's never too late for a come up. I was told before that I couldn't do it. I remember being told by my own peeps not to rap, and singing in my hood wasn't popular, but I got respect for it cause I was a beast. Facts. If you got a dream, you gotta stay committed, you can get it, but you gotta be a beast, you can't slack for a minute. Remember this, if you remember nothing else, you gotta be relentless.